2023 might go down in history as one of the most transformative years in Watchtower's history. It has been an insane year of them making changes not only to little tiny doctrinal things that only nerds care about, but things that will actually affect Jehovah's Witnesses and their day-to-day lives. And I think we're going to carry it in all the way to next year, but I wanted to do a quick video and just do a bit of a recap of all of the major changes, or not all of, but the top 5, in my opinion, major changes that happened within Jehovah's Witnesses this year. So let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to the JW Thoughts channel. My name is Wally and today we are doing the 2023 recap. It has been a bonkers year for changes within Watchtower, and I've made a top 5 list of the things that I think are going to be the most important changes when we look back at this 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now. So let's get right away into it. But quickly before, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps me out, helps it get out to more people on YouTube, helps the cause. Very much appreciated. With all of that being said, number 5, the changes that have been going on in European courts is really fascinating, and I think it has a lot of wider implications for Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, I've already made videos about those. Here's what the thumbnails look like, and I'll try and put a link in the description below. If I remember, usually someone reminds me if I forget, so we'll get there one way or the other. But basically, to give you the quick rundown, a week ago or so, I did a video about what happened in the Netherlands, where the Watchtower was suing the Dutch government for discrimination, saying, hey, why are you isolating us, and saying, that we have bad policies when it comes to our handling of CSA. And that lawsuit failed miserably because it doesn't make any sense. You're not discriminating when you're trying to protect children. That is the most absurd thing ever. And then in Norway, it's a case that is still going on, so we don't actually have like the conclusion of that. But what has happened up until now is basically Watchtower got into a bit of trouble because of advocates for children and religious freedom were presenting Watchtower's own words to the government and saying, hey, children don't have religious freedom here in Norway. And so how are we going to not only support them monetarily, but also give them the status of being a religion in this country? So they said, no, we're not going to do that. So Watchtower basically deregistered the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're suing, the Jehovah's Witnesses are now suing the Norwegian government, and there's going to be a long process of appeals, so we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens with that. But at the very least, I think it is why I put it on the list is because it is a sign that governments are starting to take notice, and they're starting to actually investigate, hey, what are these little goofballs doing? And does it line up with what we consider to be religious values or whatever the case might be in order to maintain your tax exempt status or to get particular government grants, things like that. So making Watchtower, exposing Watchtower and making their practices clearer to the wider public is having an effect. So I guess for all people that are advocates or activists, whatever you want to call them, I guess we got to keep our foot on the gas, because with these 2 cases in particular, and I guess we could throw in what's going on in Japan as well. I haven't done a whole video about that yet, but I plan to in the future. We need to keep going because it is working. And I would say that would be number 5 in my list of the most big news that happened in JW land. And on to number 4. This was tough. This was tough because to a certain extent it's kind of inconsequential, but I think the vast majority of people really will see it as being a major shift, and that has to do with beards.
After prayerful consideration, the governing body has concluded that there is a need to clarify this matter. The governing body does not have an issue with brothers wearing beards. Why not? Because the Scriptures do not condemn the wearing of beards.
Yes, I know there are people out there that have known Jehovah's Witnesses that have beards for years. I know people that have had beards, but they weren't allowed to do certain... Anyway, Watchtower came out and said, hey, it's okay if you want to have a beard. Now, if you're a man, it's become socially acceptable. We were waiting for Satan's system to come around so that way we could try and use the Bible puppet to say, actually, our stance on that didn't make any sense before, so now we're just going to go with what the Bible... Anyway, Jehovah's Witnesses can have beards now. I said it, and I mean it. Hopefully, maybe before the end of the year, I only have a couple more days, but hopefully at some point I can go and try and go to a meeting and just give an update about what it looks like, because I think it would be hilarious going to a meeting and you have lots of different guys in beards. But a pretty big development. And I think for the reason, especially reading a lot of the comments when I did make videos about that, was that people's lives were affected and made completely miserable because of the Watchtower's take on men serving in positions of power that have beards. And they were seen as these rebels. They were seen as these less than spiritual people. It could even affect someone in a relationship situation. Oh, a guy has a beard? Well, he's not going to be a good candidate for marriage because he's seen as someone that's not following all of the rules, someone that's doing their own thing. And a lot of people's lives were made completely miserable. This is apart from maybe like a medical situation where you literally can't shave regularly. But that to one side, people's lives were made miserable because of this stupid rule. The governing body just comes out and says, yeah, that wasn't all that biblical. What are you going to do? So anyway, I think that was an absolutely massive change that happened. But moving right along to number 3.
The governing body believes this same principle can be applied when it comes to reporting our time spent in the ministry. Our ministry involves much more than counting time. For this reason, we are pleased to announce that beginning November the 1st, 2023, congregation publishers will no longer be asked to report the amount of time they spend in the ministry.
No more reporting time. This is such a monumental shift to everything I know about being a Jehovah's Witness. And I made a video about this. It was one of the first videos that I ever really put together. I think I even did it before I even started the channel. I had already kind of made this one, but let me just play that for you. It's a little section, a little homage to the past, since we're looking back from whence was as we gaze into the distance and see what will be. But here's a little JW Thoughts classic for you. And yeah, I mean, I know I've been getting better with my video making, but, anyway, run it.
What a privilege we have to be serving God in these last days, at a time when Jehovah is speeding up the kingdom preaching work.
Preaching, as done by members of the Watchtower organization, is a self-proclaimed life-saving work that should leave you satisfied at the end of a long day. As you sit on the couch and open a bottle of wine, you know that God is looking down with a smile, giving you a fat thumbs up. Make sure it's in moderation, though, brother. Even though God was watching and knows exactly what you did in His work, it is necessary to report what you did to the Holy Watchtower, keepers of accurate records. So get that calculator out and add up that time, you hard-working pioneer. Just remember, as demonstrated in the Bible, God loves accurate records, so be honest.
So let's see, I started the day at about 7. Oh God, the weather was terrible. I did not want to go out in early morning witnessing. But, we do what we gotta do. So let's see, I was there on time. Right at 7 o'clock as usual. But waiting around for everyone else.
Man, what time did they get there? Not till about 7:15. I don't think we even made it to our first bus stop till about 7:30. So I guess my time starts at 7:30. Well, at least that first person I talked to was pretty friendly. Got to read him a scripture and everything. Let's see, then it was about 8 o'clock and everyone wanted to go get coffee. I don't know why they couldn't just have coffee at home, but it was fine. Then we hit a parking lot on the way back, I believe. So that was pretty good. And then we had to get back on time for the meeting for service. Man, I can't figure out why people aren't always more prepared during the meeting for service. I always have to spend about 15-20 minutes waiting for people to go to the bathroom, trying to find literature, getting in the right territory. And of course, after all that, I end up working by myself anyway. So let's see, I was back out in the territory probably by about 10. Made a few calls. It was nice. Had a nice return visit as well. And then I met up with the group. But then, of course, they wanted to go for a break at 11. So then we took a break at about 11 o'clock. And then we got back out to the territory probably about 11:30 or so, I think. Yeah. Talked to a couple people before we went back. And then it was basically time for lunch. So we stopped for lunch at about 12. Had a bit of lunch. And then we had the afternoon meeting for service. That didn't take quite as long, just kind of group up and head out. But of course, everyone has plans, so I ended up working by myself in the rain again. But the afternoon wasn't too bad. I actually got a little bit of time in. And then we took a quick little afternoon break. I had a little bit of coffee, but then I had to go to my Bible study a little bit later. So we cut the break short, so that was nice. Had a nice study. He's always right on time, always super prepared. He has those damn cats, though. They're always crawling all over the place. But, you know, it was still a nice study. That took me all the way till, man, I was on my way home probably about 6. Yeah, and then I got home at about 6:15 or so. So that's an hour 15 early morning, an hour and a half in the morning, 2.5 hours in the afternoon. So that gives me 6 hours and 45 minutes. I'll round up to 7. Wait, so I was gone for 12 hours, but I can only count 7?
Yes, time was everything. You have all of these different types of people too, and how they count time. It is a wild world when you're a Jehovah's Witness pioneer and counting your time. Now, the pioneers will still be doing that thing, but for the general pop of Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't have to worry about it anymore. Just check a box, say, did you go out preaching? Did you do a little bit of doomsdaying? You're good to go. And that's all they have to do now. But that is such a big change. One that I guess I really would not have seen coming, if I'm completely honest. So, yeah, an absolutely massive one, and comes in at only number 3. But I would have to say number 1 and 2 are pretty wacky. So, number 2, everyone's favorite governing body member, Tony Morris, unceremoniously yeeted from the governing body ranks, goes out not with a bang but with a whimper, and disappears like a fart in the wind. And still a bit of a mystery, because Watchtower won't come through and say exactly why. Just, he's no longer a member of the governing body, blah, blah, blah. And that's it. And then subsequently, them coming through and making a lot of different changes, which I think is indicative of maybe some of the problems he was having with other governing body members, but also trying to scrap him from JW.org, as a lot of people have documented. They have been slowly removing videos of his on JW.org. So he gets yeeted, and then they start slowly trying to pretend like he didn't say certain things, but leaving some of his videos up. I don't know how far it's going to go, but I'm here for it. I think it's one of the most curious things that I can think of that would have happened in Jehovah's Witness land in a very long time, because governing body members don't just get blasted like that. They have their pictures, like their portraits, put on the wall of the Oval Office of the governing body. They are revered and remembered for generations to come. So for him just to get plucked and then unceremoniously attempting to scrape his memory altogether, pretty weird stuff, if I'm completely honest. And I'm assuming the reason we haven't heard anything from Tony Morris or about him is because he probably had to sign something that said he's not going to expose the governing body or do anything like that, or expose the reason that he was kicked out. And he can just live out the rest of his days in some podunk town in North Carolina or South Carolina, wherever it is. So yeah, it was one of the most fascinating developments in witness history, but it's not my number one. I know a lot of people might think that would have been the one that I picked, but I have to say the biggest news or change, and this one's cheating a little bit because as you're listening to this, normal Jehovah's Witnesses don't even know about this yet because it was at the annual meeting and they haven't released this portion of the annual meeting to everyday Jehovah's Witnesses yet. So buckle up because I think there's going to be a storm that's happening. What am I talking about? The massive change, my number one thing I never would have saw coming, being that you no longer have to be a Jehovah's Witness in good standing within the organization when the Great Tribulation breaks out. Now, for any plebes out there that don't know the lore, the Great Tribulation is something where the governments of the world turn against all of religion, and they say, no more, we're doing away with religion, and that is going to mark the start of this thing that they call the Great Tribulation, where Jehovah's Witnesses are going to be, persecuted and gathered up and be hiding in basements and all sorts of tomfoolery. And that is going to be a short period of time right before Armageddon happens. And that's where everyone that's not believing Jehovah's Witness gets eviscerated. The big change, they said, was you can be someone that's not a Jehovah's Witness. You can also be someone that is disfellowshipped or disassociated and still do a last second from downtown salvation. Something that was decried within witness culture for generations because it doesn't have the intensity that normally you have when you're a Jehovah's Witness. I'm trying to think of a good example. So when I was still in, I had some friends and we were talking about whether or not it would be worth it to have sex and just get disfellowshipped. That way you don't end up marrying someone that you're incompatible with and being stuck with them for billions of years to come. Basically get the horniness out. So we were theory crafting this whole situation of, well, is it actually worth it just to be disfellowshipped for like 6 months or a year and then come back and then you'll have gotten all of that crazy, early 20s teen like sex drive out of you, and then you'd be a little bit more thoughtful when choosing a life partner. And our conclusion that we came to was, well, what if you got screwed and the Great Tribulation broke out and then you were killed at Armageddon because you were disfellowshipped? So that's how deep it goes for Jehovah's Witnesses. If you are not in good standing when the Great Tribulation, they referred to it as being like the doors of Noah's Ark. When those doors close, don't come a knocking. And they've basically changed that and said, well, we can't really say, we don't really know. So there are people right now having those same discussions like I did with my friends. Like, well, is this worth it? I think you might see a big shift in the mindset of people, because if you can wait for evidence, essentially, you can just wait until you have proof that the Jehovah's Witness doctrine is correct. I think you might have some people, again, the vast majority of people are going to just stay in because it's what they know, it's where their friends are, where their family is, it's their way of life, blah, 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 blah. But you will have some people, those brave pathfinders that say, so I don't have to do this anymore? Cool, I'm out. So I am very curious to see what is going to happen when that news drops. But that is my top 5 list. So I'll just run it back. Number 1, you can be disfellowshipped, you can be disassociated, you can not be a Jehovah's Witness when the Great Tribulation breaks out, and still get salvation. Tony Morris getting blasted from the governing body unceremoniously. No more reporting of time. You can wear a beard and have a privileged position within the organization, and the developments in Europe when it comes to how governments are looking into the practices of Jehovah's Witnesses. What a monumental year it's been. I could not have seen this coming. I was watching some of my old videos where I was making predictions, and in those I would say things like, well, in the next 10 years they could... Even I was wrong, and I was seen as someone that is a little bit more radical with my opinions on the downfall of Watchtower. And yet even I was wrong. I was saying it would be in 10 years, and bada bing, bada boom, it happened in 2023, baby. Let's go. With all of that being said, if I don't see you till 2024, stay safe. Wait, I just thought of this. Should we have a new outro? Whoa, that'd be big. Okay, comment down below what you think the new outro should be, or if we should not change it at all, because that could be huge. I guess that means I just stopped the video here.